Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are live, and we are talking Grand Funk Railroad. We're going to talk about 1971 Survival. Larry Graves is here, the Canadian Studmuffin, and DC Toontime. Let's do it!
Talking bands no one talks about. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we are live, and we're talking Grand Funk. This is part 8 in our series. And tonight we are talking about the 1971 album, Survival. Now I've acquired, of course DC's here, but we have a special guest here tonight. Larry Graves, the Canadian Studmuffin. Exactly. He is the Mark Farner fan club. He is the president, obviously. And he's here to talk this certain album with us because, like I said, in all seriousness, he is a Grand Funk fan. So bring Larry on. Let's have a discussion. Let's see if this is one of those albums that I like. And, well, it's a stretch because we're going back in time. Now, everybody knows how I feel about the Todd Rundgren records because I think that those are, that's where everything came together. But we're going to look at these records and keep it loose, and we're just going to talk about it. So anyway, gentlemen, nice to see you. Welcome to the show. Glad you could both be here, of course.
Thank you, Grant. Great to be here, and nice to have Larry on with us. It'll be interesting to get Larry's thoughts because we're contemporaries. We're about the same age. So we lived this as these albums were coming out. Yeah. We purchased them and absorbed them and probably have a different framework than Grant as you were a young lad.
I was actually stealing the records from the stores back then.
See, my whole thing when I was in high school, even though some people may disagree with this, but whoever I was hanging out with, we didn't even give two squats about Grand Funk. It never came up in the conversation. As far as I know, the classic rock stations didn't really play any of it. They might have played We're American Band, but the rest of the catalog or any of these records were not on our radar.
Nor should they be. And that's the weird thing about Grand Funk. They came, they dominated, they exited without a whimper. And like you say, just American Band, Locomotion, but for the most part, by the time you were coming through those formative years, Grant, they were off the radar completely.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to keep this interactive because we'd like to do... here we go, Ken White. Is this show going to be in quad, stereo, or mono? You know, Ken, if I could do quad, damn it, you know I would. But no, we are, I guess we're in stereo. I think all this comes out in mono. Only on the listening parties are we on stereo, baby. But anyway.
How about that Dan Gotcher comment? Evening,
what did Dan say?
Evening, gentlemen. And DC. Why
what is that,
oughta,
Dan?
Why I oughta.
You don't get DC all worked up. Nathan thinks Grand Funk is great. Well, some of it is. Jason, you're out of your damn mind. From the little Grand Funk I've heard, the early stuff. No.
Yeah.
You guys must be doing crack or something because you guys. No, Todd Rundgren knew exactly what to do with Grand Funk. We're an American Band, and Shining On is the crowning achievement.
I'm really curious to get Larry's take on all of this.
We'll talk about it. Yeah. I've got another show at 8, so we have an hour to do it. So anyway, real quick. This is the 4th album by Grand Funk. Now, DC and I pretty much covered a lot of those later albums. Now we're starting to go back into that earlier catalog. We covered that live album, which I thought was pretty much needles on a chalkboard. But this album, recorded at the Cleveland Recording Company, produced by Terry Knight. And as we've talked about this, Terry Knight really didn't do much with production. A lot of this stuff was produced by the band, even though it doesn't say that. But Terry liked money, and he liked to take the fame for a lot of things.
And he liked putting towels on the drum kit.
Oh, yeah, Larry, you and I are on the same page with this. Absolutely.
I don't have a problem with the drum sound as much. I know it was a Ringo Starr thing. And hey, at least Terry is trying to do something and try to throw something out to the band to work on. But I don't have a problem. What I really have a problem with this record is the mix. The mix is absolutely horrible. Where's the guitar at? It's all bass and drums.
And the drums, like I usually listen on headphones. The drums are on the one channel most of the time.
And Mark's on the other side, but he seems very low in the mix. Yeah. It's not. I want more. God, I don't think I've ever said this, but I could use a little bit more Mark. Because everybody on this program knows I'm a big Don Boy fanboy. And we'll talk about Don Brewer because I think his track on the record is the best track on the record, as it should be.
I got some things to say about a lot of aspects of this recording, referring to Mr. Knight, who was a wonderful promoter of Grand Funk, but a horrible producer.
Yeah.
Those tippy-tappy drums on this thing.
It's like cardboard, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like maracas almost. This isn't the Beatles, Terry Knight. This is Grand Funk Railroad.
Hey, we're talking 1971 Grand Funk, though, DC. They were on top of the world right now.
Produce them accordingly. That album cover, Survival, belies what's on this album. There is nothing gritty or primal or anything on this album. This is a very soft album, in my opinion.
That's pretty harsh words coming from you.
Not saying it's not a good album, but really only the cover of Gimme Shelter really brings it rock-wise. There are some funky tunes.
No.
Funky tunes, but not rocking like Grand Funk had been.
I think it's filler.
Oh, well, no. I like.
Oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good.
I like it more than the Rolling Stones original.
Well,
I
do. Larry, my thoughts are: I love both versions, but the Grand Funk version is so much more angry. Where the Stones is like a matter of fact. Yeah, this is the way it is in this horrid world. Grand Funk's version is angry, and it comes across
as filler.
Oh, you know what? Okay, let's.
I'm gonna go.
Let Larry.
Let me tell you my history with.
I'm gonna let Larry start out.
Let me talk for a minute.
I will follow up last when I completely tear this album apart. All right, go ahead, Larry.
No, in the early '70s, I was a big Grand Funk fan. First with probably the Red Album. I never heard On Time for many years later, and then Close to Home. And of course, Grand Funk's live album, one of Grant's all-time favorite live albums.
Oh, hideous.
No, it is my
Hey, Pete Pardo said, I don't mean to interrupt, but Pete Pardo, when we were on the show on Saturday or Sunday, he said, Grant, I think you would like the second live album much better than the first one.
Yeah, you would.
So that's what we need to look at next.
Yeah.
So. All right, anyway, go ahead. So I'm all excited. He says the second one's better than the first one. Oh, it is what it is. Right,
I would say it's almost as good. What do you think, DC? Like,
I would say that given what Grant likes about Grand Funk and the Todd Rundgren approach, you will like that second live album much better.
Yeah.
And in fact, that tour, you can watch it on YouTube. There is a full concert of that Shining On tour on YouTube, and you can get the visual along with the sound. But I think, Grant, with where you are with Grand Funk, you will like that second live album much
That's
better.
what I want to look at next.
Okay. So anyway, so I was a fan. So when Survival came out, I was, when you buy an album and you're wanting to really love it, but inside you really don't. You can't connect with it completely. That's how I felt about Survival at the time. I was 58 today, and I was 13 years old. I liked it, but I didn't love it. It took me probably until this was remastered in 2002 or whatever, that I listened to it again, and it's my favorite studio album of theirs now.
That's what I was really curious to hear from you, Larry, is that initially this album didn't floor
It was
you, but
disappointing. Yeah.
decades later, you re-listen to it, and now it's become your top of the top.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Now there are some negatives, like we've mentioned, the drum sound, which is mentioned in the booklet, and like the start of side 2 with all that studio chatter, right? It's interesting to hear the first time, right? But every time I play an album, I want to listen to it all the way through without skipping anything. So I got to go through that 2 or 3 minutes of studio chatter every time, and it gets a little tiresome. And it is kind of like they're looking for some filler for the album, you know.
Well, the part where the kids are talking,
I like
and
that.
all that. I
don't
don't.
mind
It's
that.
just filler.
No,
They were running out of material on this record.
I agree. There are only 7 tracks on this album, and you've got 2 covers. You also have filler with the opening to, was it "I Want Freedom," where Dawn's in the leading the band through their stages, and there's and then "I Could Feel 'Em in the Morning" with the kids.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah.
That is chilling. That last kid
it gets you into the mood for the song.
Yes.
Yeah.
That last kid saying, I think that there are a lot more bad people than there are good, and that if you're good, you'll live forever, but if you're bad, you'll die when you die. You'll die when you die. You'll die when you die. That is a hell of a lot more chilling than that corny-ass Halloween bullshit that they tacked on to the end of "All You've Got Is Money." What's all that screeching and howling?
That's the thing I wrote down.
What the fuck does that have to do with "All You've Got Is Money"?
The language. We're a good family show.
We have a couple ladies here. I'm sorry, ladies. I got carried away.
All They Want Is Your Money, a good song. I like it. Then they get into this kind of jam thing at the end, which is great.
Yeah, why add the sound effects?
The screaming reminds me of Frank Zappa's "The Torture Never Stops." What's the point of the? Yeah,
I do agree with Grant. They were running very short of material at this time.
They were busy, right?
Yeah, they were busy. 7 tracks, and you've got 2 covers now.
And the record company wants more albums, right?
And that was how it was in the 70s. If you were any band or artist of note, you were expected two new albums per year, plus your touring. So there you go.
Hey, Dan, I wish Craig was on this record.
Mark does a nice job. In fact, that's a nice solo on "I Got Freedom." I like it.
Yeah, that's all right.
Now,
all right, keep going. Sorry, Larry. In the warehouse, we keep it loose because it's like DC and I are hanging by the water cooler rapping while young Logan moves albums from aisle to aisle. I don't know where young Logan is tonight. He's not here.
Or Marlon.
Where is Marlon? He probably should like Grand Funk.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe something went down on the warehouse between aisle 7 and 13 that we don't know about yet.
Probably Denny.
Don't know. Oh, God, Denny.
Yeah, don't get us started. All right, sorry, Larry. Keep going.
I'm just going to rank the songs. All
right, that's fine.
From my favorite to the least favorite. My favorite would be "I Can Feel Him in the Morning." I love the vocals. Don Brewer, like Grant has said, great vocals.
I agree.
But I'm a fan of Mark's vocals. I think he's a very good singer. And then, so "I Can Feel Him in the Morning" is first. And then "Give Me Shelter." And then "Country Road." I love the opening track. "Comfort Me," that's a classic. "Feeling All Right," a great cover version of that. And then my least favorite is 2 favorites are "All You've Got Is Money," which I still really like. And my least favorite is "I Want Freedom." Because Mark's always talking about wanting freedom. Tired
well,
of it.
he likes to preach. Now, let me ask you this, because I haven't... Of course, we know in this series, I really haven't looked at anything prior to this because I'm trying to gump through it without any preconceived notions. I don't know these records. I didn't listen to Survival until this show. What is this, like the first album where Mark starts to preach about stuff and get political and the Jesus thing? Is this where it starts? And I'm not judging, I'm just asking.
I'm trying to think closer to home kind of has kind of spiritual overtones, but not overtly. I would say this album, Mark's coming more with the political stuff, and I can feel him in the morning as a co-write between Don and Mark.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Grand Funk has always had a spiritual side, which doesn't bother me being, like I say, a person of faith. Doesn't bother me. It could rub people the other way if, someone was singing about Ronaldo, the goat god, and you're not
Ronaldo. I told you not to bring him up.
Ronaldo, the goat god. If you're not a devotee, you would probably say, what the hell, quit singing about Ronaldo. But anyway, I think that's a good point, Grant. I think this is when Mark started to really bring what he was feeling politically and spiritually to the fore.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah.
And, some of the later records, DC, we've talked about it. It's a little bit too much for me when he really starts down that road. Well, this is fine. Understand. This doesn't bother me. It's okay.
Larry brought up a bit about Mark Farner and his vocals. I'm a hardcore devotee of Mark Farner's vocals. In fact, I think the guy is truly one of the best voices of the classic rock era. So soulful and powerful. I love Brewer too, but I put Farner just above Brewer a bit. But for a band to have two vocalists like this, pow.
Here's Farner.
Okay.
Look how high Brewer is.
Grant, were there any vocals by Mark that you thought, he's singing well here? Or?
I like the more later stuff because he's not so hopped up. What killed me on the live record is it's just too much.
It's called energy, Grant.
It's too much. I only can listen to that album.
It's going to kick your ass.
Maybe 3 tracks, and I have to turn it off. And it's just like it's ready just to take off like a rocket ship. And I was talking to Pete about it, and Pete's just like, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, Martin doesn't love it, so I don't know. I'm more on Martin's team.
I think at the core of all of this shirtlessness with Farner really irritates the hell out of Grant.
I don't like him. He's not. He has a shirt on here. Hell, look at Mel.
Look at Mel. Mel's practically naked.
Put some damn clothes on, hippies.
And speaking of which, when you got this album back in the day, and here's my copy from back in the day, you also got little poster-sized photos of each of the gentlemen in their caveman garb, which I think one of my high school girlfriends stole from me, probably for the Farner pick more than anything. But I no longer have those. I'm no longer the proud owner of those.
Nice.
Rock and roll fantasy. Okay.
Yeah. I think Maureen she could have been a groupie with Grand Funk. I don't know. She seems awfully happy about it. These guys looked big when I was 15. Well, most of these bands do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, all right, Larry, that's your ranking?
Yeah. Of the
okay,
song.
So, usually on this show, when we look at these Grand Funk albums, we're going to, right, DC, I'm all worked up, like Mark Farner. When we do this, don't we do our average rating out of 10?
We do an overall rating for the album.
All right, so Larry, to put you on the spot, because you are in the Warehouse, and this is great to have you, thank you. What would you rate this out of 10 for Grand, or I don't know how you want to rate it, but in the Grand Funk catalog or just records overall, whatever you feel this record deserves, what would you rate this out of 10?
I will give it a 9 out of 10. The only thing taking it from away from a 10 is mainly the one song, I Want Freedom, and all that studio chatter you don't need, and the end of All You've Got Is Money with the screaming I don't really care for.
Yeah, I haven't got to that yet.
But otherwise, I have played this a lot in the last few years. Like it doesn't just sit in my CD collection year after year. I actually listen to it.
My theory is that the screaming is that, of course, we can see Grand Funk here in the cave. They just got done killing woolly mammoths. Oh, speaking of the devil. Holy crap. Of course he shows up. Put him on here. He would defend this.
He would.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Pete, for showing up. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But look, I think that the screaming is a woolly mammoth getting clubbed by Mel.
I'm thinking it might be Don Brewer at the drum sound that Terry Knight made him go to on this album. He's like wailing in his cave.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen.
So, Mark, what did you think of the opening song? Country Roads.
Who?
You,
Mark.
Grant.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, let me look at. Well, no. Wait for me. I'll go last.
I can't wait.
No. We got to go to DC. So we have a 9 from Larry, and we're going to go over to DC. And DC, give us your spiel. I don't care if you rank
Don't let
anything,
me down,
but
DC.
but and DC's been here from the beginning on this series. So Pete's going, my ears are ringing. That's right. All right. So DC, give us your spiel on Survival and your rating out of 10. And then I will go last just for fun.
Well, Larry and I are closer in our thoughts about Grand Funk Railroad overall and this album in particular, I'm sure. Again, the album belies what's enclosed. You're looking at this album cover and you're thinking you're going to get raw, gritty, primal, but you don't, aside from the cover version of Gimme Shelter. This is a very soft and laid back Grand Funk Railroad, in my opinion, overall. We mentioned the 7 songs, 2 being cover versions. I think they were very strapped at this point for material, obviously, with the filler, studio banter, and the intro, which I do like with the little kids talking about their concept of God. It is a nice segue into that tune. My big gripe with this is the drums. And as we kind of mentioned earlier, it was Terry Knight watching the Beatles' Let It Be film and noticing that Ringo had, what were they called? They were tea covers, tea towels that he saw Ringo. Hey, Terry, that's okay for the Beatles. This is Grand Funk Railroad.
I think Don Brewer is a different drummer than Ringo.
Exactly. And from what I understand, Brewer was more than a little pissed at what was done to his drum songs on this album. It's tippy-tappy, tinny, sounds like maracas. To make up for it, he starts hitting that hi-hat, and it's just totally effed up, folks.
Goodness.
And I toned it down there with just using the F.
All right, so Pete, 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5, so that would translate to what?
7 out of 10.
About
7 out of 10?
7.5. Okay.
All right, Pete's all right. Is it a 7 or 7.5?
We'll wait to add his
Pete,
numbers.
what is your number? And we will put your, and in fact, everybody in the chat who knows this record, give us your scores and we will tally everything together. And then we will come up with a
10,
ranking.
Right?
Out of 10. All right, Pete's giving it a 7. Thank you.
I'm going to give it a 10. No, just joking.
No, we have to be honest. We're being honest.
I don't want to be honest.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Larry's favorites to least. Larry's favorites to least favorite on this album mirror mine exactly. So I'll just touch base on these songs and just give them a little flourish. Country Road. This is a different approach by the boys. Very laid back, swanky groove by Farner to start things out. Nice bass as always, complementing guitar by Mel. But those tippy-tappy, tinny drums. Horrible. All You Got Is Money. I said funky style. Again, the drums are terrible.
And you love the screaming at the end.
Yeah, and not assertive at all. Like I said, Terry Knight was a great promoter, horrible producer. The ending sound effect, the Halloween sound effects, as me and Larry were discussing, what is the point? The song is All You Got Is Money. It's not like the hobgoblins are coming to get you. I mean, it goes into this kind of like groovy, heavy riff at the end there, but all this screaming and it's just nonsense.
6.
Let us see. Comfort Me, very laid back vocal with Farner. This is an acoustic guitar driven song. with the tippy-tappy drums, of course. Kind of a change of pace for the band. Nice Mark and Don harmonies on the chorus. Halfway through, it changes for a short bit, revisiting the pace of the first 2 tracks. Feeling all right, first of 2 covers here. Both of them are fine. This was released as a single back in the day. In the States, it reached number 54. Yes.
Yeah.
But in Canada, Larry, this tune reached number 20 on the charts. So that's very respectable. I Want Freedom, In the Studio Noodling. And this surprises me a little bit because Don is really taking the lead here. He's telling everybody what to play and how to play it. I always thought Mark was the man, but apparently it was a little bit more democratic than, what we thought originally. Let's see. And Mark plays some fine organ lead here, pre-Craig Frost entering the equation. I agree with Larry. I Can Feel Him in the Morning is fantastic and clearly my favorite song on the album. Like we say, Grand Funk has always had a spiritual side.
And those female singers at the end, it's just gorgeous.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I know. I've got more to comment about the female singers.
Well, there seems to be a little bit of controversy beyond with that.
Dawn's vocal here is tremendous. The female vocalist, who I believe is an uncredited Mary Clayton, she oddly doesn't appear in any of the credits. But you look at so many of the albums from back in the day, there were a lot of people stiffed in the credits of albums. That's odd because she also did the background vocals in the Stones' Gimme Shelter, and there's also the cover of that song on this album. So that's kind of weird. Somebody has said in my research that was tape manipulation of Don Brewer, and he's doing those background vocals. No effing way. I'm having a real time.
That's what Don's Brewer manager said.
That's what he said. That's bull crap. That is a female voice, and I'm sticking with an uncredited Mary Clayton or somebody in Cleveland who was a Mary Clayton sound-alike.
Mark Farner, this is on the Steve Hoffman site. Someone emailed. Actually, they emailed Mark Farner. Mark Farner, you saw that. Okay, so he responded and said there was 2 females and a gentleman that did the background vocals on the album from Cleveland. He didn't mention who they were, but they were local people.
Well, that's incredible because that sounds like Mary Clayton, and she's one of the all-time greats.
Now, but you could get a Mary Clayton. I'm sure there are.
You know what, Grant?
You know what I mean.
You know what I could maybe do, Grant? I know you're such a big fan of Mark Farner. I interviewed him about a year ago. Okay. I could get him on.
Get him on this show.
Yeah, and talk to him. And you can tell him how you don't like his vocals or guitar work.
Maybe you better have me host that one, Grant.
You might want to let me sit out.
DC
could you get Don Brewer, maybe?
No, I don't want him.
I love Don Brewer. Don Brewer's a man.
I'm clearly in the Farner clan camp. Boy, but Mark
most people
posed. My God, how can they do that to him?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, what you don't know about Cleveland, I grew up in Northeast Ohio. Terry Knight and Grand Funk Railroad have a strong connection to Cleveland. There was a show called Upbeat. It was like American Bandstand, and Terry Knight and the Pack were always on there. So if they wanted a Mary Clayton sound-alike in Cleveland, they would know where to find one if there was one. Okay, Gimme Shelter. I can't say I prefer this to the Stones version. I love them both, but as I was talking to you, Larry and Grant, this is much angrier than the Stones version. And this is the one song that the album cover, it looks like this song would be on that album.
And Mel's bass on that song, so upfront, I love it.
Yeah.
Not me. Who mixed this record? Because someone obviously needs to go to engineering school.
Terry Knight. You think Terry Knight was going to pay anybody to do that? Hell no.
He's out of his mind. Because it's all bass and drums, and Mark Farner's guitar is way too low in the mix.
Yeah.
Now, about production, you must admit, like a song like Closer to Home, that's superb production in my view. Like,
what happened here? Were they all tapped out? What the?
I think George Martin produced it.
Okay. To wrap it up for me, the album was rushed. This is being the reason for only 7 songs and 2 covers. Still a fine effort. And if I had to grade it, I would go with 7.5.
7.5. Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, we've got a 7.5 from DC and a 9 from the Studmuffin, for God's sakes. All right. Let me let it rip. All right. This is how I look at this. If anybody's been following this series, I think everything We're an American Band on is pretty damn good. Right, DC? For the most part?
That's your sweet spot, and that's why we decided in this little exercise, what is the nexus between Grant and possibly liking Grand Funk Railroad, and that was Todd Rundgren. So I said, let's just start with the Todd material that he produced and go from there. So
here we go. Pete Pardo, #1 Mark Farner fan. Mark Farner fanboy. I thought it was the Studmuffin, but evidently not. They spent 0 time in the studio because Knight had them out on the road constantly. Yeah. Well, and it shows because this sounds like a rushed record to me. And it's a rush mix job. They spent, how long did they spend in the studio for this? A couple weeks? Not very long.
Not very long.
But it was the 70s. During this time period, a lot of bands pumped out 2 albums a year, maybe even more, you know. But that's the way it was. Now you don't see that. But to me, when I listen to this record, it sounds like a rushed affair that they've been out on the road. Yeah, Pete's right, on the road. They probably just scraped together this. Now, one thing that was good, I always mention Robert Christgau for hating everything. He did a review on Survival from 1971. He said, for about a year, I've been saying that people aren't stupid, that there has to be something new about this music regarding Grand Funk. And of course there is. It Americanizes Led Zeppelin with a fervent ingenuousness that does justice to the broad gestures of mass art. But now I read where various men have taste, having reached similar conclusions, acclaim in addition to actually like this stuff. This is going a bit too far. He gave this record a C. Now, he was also the critic that gave them props. He mentioned that thinking about bands during this time period, DC, help me. What album was Shining On? Was that album number 9?
Number 9.
Okay.
Number 9.
Think about a lot of these bands during this time period. The fact that Grand Funk Railroad, and you can quote me on this, got a chance to do 9 albums, well, 10, on one record label. And the way I look at it, I think Shining On is the best record. And I've went into that, checked the Shining On show. They got better as they went along. This is a better record than the live album. To me, because I think Grand Funk improved. Not many bands improve over time. Some people go down the toilet. This band improved over time. Shining On. Let's look at that. Shining On, the title track. Absolutely brilliant. I can listen to We're American Band and Shining On over and over and never get tired of it. Mm-hmm. Todd Rundgren knew exactly what to do with Grand Funk. Yep. What they needed was a producer. If you would have had Rundgren on here, God knows what he could have done.
Oh, yeah.
This sounds like a band producing themselves. Terry Knight is not doing a whole... I got to watch my time. Terry Knight's... Well, I get on a... You know how I am, DC. Get all worked up.
Come on.
Pretty soon the screen's going to fog up. So, what was I saying? Oh, Terry Knight was basically just cashing in a paycheck. This sounds like a band that was producing themselves. Okay. Where am I going with this? I don't know. This record, they took more time to record. They took actually 6 weeks to record this than any previous record.
But 1 week was putting the towels in the drum kit. Exactly.
And mixing it, all the bass up. Pete Pardo's going crazy in the chat. He's all excited. What is he doing? Wait a minute. Hold on.
Grand Funk brings that out in the people who believe in this band.
They were
Passion.
a people's band. Kids loved them
Yeah.
because their lyrics were all about what was going on, though. They related to them. I don't know. Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't want all that preaching. All the girls in the world. Yes, now we're talking.
That is when I gave up on Grand Funk. When I saw that album cover in the record store, I said, I'm done.
Yeah. That's the shame because their decision to go that campy, funny route with that album cover drove so many Grand Funk Railroad fans away and not even give that album a chance. And it is pop Grand Funk, but there's a lot of really gems in there.
You compare it to the Grand Funk Live album. When you see the cover, oh, that's so cool. And then you see that, it's like, oh.
Oh, I know. It's a shock to the system. And I don't think anybody was that thrilled with the Born to Die cover, too. People
Black Licorice. Ernesto, Black Licorice, brilliant.
Yeah.
Great.
No tippy-tappy drums on that one, huh? No, sir.
According to Dan, Tom Scholz had nightmares about putting one album a year out. He probably did.
Yeah, very stressful.
Love Beach is a better album cover. So anyway, I think that the band, they took 6 weeks to record, but I still think they didn't have the material. But I do think they sound pretty good as a band. I think the mix is wonky, but let's just think about them playing together. I think whether or not you like Don's drum sound, he is a monster of a player. You cannot disagree with that. What a great drummer. Oh my God.
That's the damn shame. He's not allowed to play the way Don Brewer can play. It's all this tippy-tappy afternoon tea with Granny. I mean, bring it, man.
But see, Todd Rundgren knew what to do with Don.
Yep.
He let Don play. Those drum patterns all on those 2 Rundgren albums, killer.
Yeah, but if you even listen to the album after this one, E Pluribus, Don's back to Don. This album, that little gem of thought that Terry Knight had with the towels over the drum, just stay the hell in the control booth. You're doing enough damage as is.
Ernest, you're 100% right, because you remember back in the day, Rolling Stone hated Led Zeppelin. Of course, they hated Queen. Rolling Stone hated everybody. If it wasn't Bob Dylan or
the CBGB bands.
The band, you know what I mean. Or if the Ramones, they hated everything else.
Or Television, or all their CBGB bands they loved.
So anyway, Country Road. The thing that I wrote about is who mixed this? Because it's all effed up. But this song pretty much sets the stage for the rest of the album. Same tempo, poor mix. Where is Rundgren to get these tracks into shape? But I wrote on here, it's better than the steroid-driven live album. But when I listen to this, they need a producer. All you got is money. Funky, but you've got Mark Farner preaching and the screaming, which I think are mammoths being clubbed, or maybe small mammals. But it's kind of boring. It's a Cream takeoff. You've got wannabe Eric Clapton guitar fills. Sounds like Cream to me. We're in 1971. Cream's been broken up. Boy, I'm harsh on this one. But it's kind of fun. Comfort Me, acoustic ditty. You get a lot of Mark on here, and you get a lot of layered Mark. And layered Mark gives me gas, because I need Mark and Don together. What's great about Grand Funk is the blend of Mark Farner and Don Brewer together.
Yeah.
Too much Mark's bad, probably too much Don's bad, but I haven't seen too much bad Don. But the blend of those guys, great. The drums, the thing is, the drums are really well recorded. Give me a moment, because you have to admit, the recording's very tight. You might not like the sound of the drums.
It's very clean.
Oh yeah, it's very clean. I can hear every
very
little
clean.
It
needs to be rougher and tougher.
But you have to admit, they're very well recorded.
Yeah.
But they're really hot. So I don't know if Terry Knight had a thing for Don Brewer during these sessions and was going, Don, you're my guy. I don't know. I don't know much about Terry. But Comfort Me sounds like I'm Your Captain on steroids, and it's just too much Mark for me. Feeling All Right, all I wrote on here was filler. It's an interpretation. Stick with the original Traffic or the Joe Cocker version. I would say that the Joe Cocker version is the version. And why even touch it other than you don't have enough material? I Want Freedom. Studio banter to fill out the album. Yawn. The intro on this, you have to admit, gentlemen, is very proggy. I was in. I'm going, well, I can get rid of the banter. Yeah, I know we have to pad this album out a bit. But the intro is kind of proggy. I thought, well, what's going on here? But then we end up going back to mid-tempo like we've heard before. Nothing too memorable. I think the songs could be better. And the thing is, Todd Rundgren could look at these guys and knew that these guys could write songs. I don't see great songs here. No offense. I don't try to. This is how I hear it.
I actually think from what I read of the time when Todd agreed to take this band on, he kind of felt bad for him. Is it because they're catching all kinds of shit? These guys are good players, good
Same with Frank
songwriters.
Zappa, right?
Yeah, these
Frank
guys.
was saying it's the production.
Frank and Todd don't produce just chumps.
Yeah.
Dan, we're talking about that the next show. Because Mr. Pardo said, Grant, you'll like that much better. So we're going to look at that next. Okay. Right. So, yes. So, I Can Feel Him in the Morning is the best track on the record. I get that there's a minute 30 of children talking, which is filler. We need more stuff. Let's put some kids on here talking about whatever they're talking about. And Don Brewer sings on that, and I am down because the thing is, the beautiful thing of Grand Funk is Don can take a vocal, Mark can take a vocal, we can mix it up, and it gives a lot of variety. It's too much Don here. No offense. It's too much for me. I like Don Brewer. I mean, too much of, what did I say?
Mark.
Not enough Don,
Yeah.
too much
Too
Mark.
much Mark.
The backing vocal, according to Don's management, it's Don doing it. And according to Mark Farner, studio singers from Cleveland.
Always believe Mark.
Yeah, always.
He
So
said, and this is a quote from Mark Farner, 2 girls, 1 black, 1 white, who sang background vocals on the album. And he said that they were badass.
they are. Because if I think it's Mary Clayton, that is badass.
He didn't mention who it was.
Yeah. They probably weren't part of the union and not paid union musician wages. That's probably why there's no credit for background vocals there.
So I did more research, and what I understood that this is the Willettes, Donna Hall and Ella Brown Avery are doing background vocals.
No, that's not true, Grant.
That's
They-
what
they
it's.
did- Yeah,
That's
they're,
what
they're
I heard.
wrong.
It's on the
because
internet.
That's yeah. They hooked up with those 2 singers when they toured with Wet Willie on the Shining On tour, because Wet Willie was their opener, and in fact, Mark had a thing with the Hall girl. That's a singer. They were a couple at the time.
God knows we don't want to interrupt BM Bolt's dinner. Here I thought, my goodness, we don't want to come up.
Yeah, we don't want to get in the way of that.
I'm gonna have Larry get Mark on here to clear this up. All right, so it's not the Willettes. Okay.
No.
One last song, Give Me Shelter, pure filler.
Oh my God.
Okay. The original Give Me Shelter.
Why
I
did we
think
do it?
was
Because
perfection.
It kicked ass.
No, it's because they didn't have enough material.
Grant, you just don't like hard rock.
That's bullshit.
You don't like energy.
I
the
like
thing.
energy.
You
That's
don't like Mel's thumping
it's-
bass.
bullshit.
It's there as filler, I agree. But if you're going to do a cover song, I think this is fantastic. In fact, the Grand Funk and Stones version are like right there. They're just different approaches.
I'm not going to give it, Byron, I'm not going to give it a 0. But we're getting better. This is no Shining On or We're an American Band, which are 2 10 out of 10 albums in my book. And I like All the Girls. I think that's decent. It's not up to the Rundgren material. But Born to Die, I like Born to Die. It's a little bit of a downer record. But DC and I looked at that, and I thought it was a fine record. I don't know why that gets slammed so much. I think it was a good record.
I think that album cover, along with All the Girls in the World Beware, just turned off so many Grand Funk fans that was like they went into it. Even if they listened to it, they hated it.
Now, I don't think
Warehaus.
Now, I want to go on record. I don't think this is a bad record. But considering the other stuff later, is much better. But like I said before, Grand Funk is a band that gets better over time.
Now, Grant, how many times did you listen to this album?
How long have we been doing this show, DC? How long have we planned this?
Oh, month. Well,
I
did we
probably
come up on this one about a month?
10, 12 times, maybe?
Okay. Yeah.
It's fine, but it doesn't just get me. I just hear that it's, well, what I said. And that's what I hear. But then again, I what can I say? I am sold on that Rundgren period. And can't wait for part 9.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Ken, we're going to talk about good singing and good playing, but now that I'm worked up on the second live album, we're going to, I think, probably do the second live album and then good singing and good playing. Because DC and I already talked about it. And Larry, if you want to come back and discuss those in a month,
we'd love to have you.
The more the merrier. So you're more than welcome. Study up on that live album.
Yeah.
Hey, Pete mentioned it. He said I would like it a lot better. So, hey, I'll go with that. I have never heard it, but I will. So here we go. So I would give this, I'm going to go with what Christgau, he gave it a C. I think it's not great. Would I come back and listen to this again? No, I don't have any interest in listening to it again. It's not bad. It's not great. I would give it a 5. I would give it a 5 out of 10. It's okay.
Okay. We want honesty here.
And that's pretty good for a band that I don't like.
Yeah. Just lay your cards on the table there, Grant. With us what we want.
I have to be honest, and it's not about pissing any people off.
No, this is the credo of the Warehaus. Honesty.
Honesty. So we've got a 9, and what was yours? Wait a minute, here we go. Oh, Dan. It's better than any Black Oak, Arkansas after 1975.
Like
you know, Dan, on SOT, we're getting ready to do Black Oak, Arkansas.
Yeah. I was a fan of them in the early 70s, not for long.
That's a big catalog, guys.
Yeah. Hey,
High on the Hog.
I know we're on a tangent, but talk about if you're looking at CD prices used, all that stuff's out of print pretty much.
Yeah, it's crazy.
There is a Jim Dandy comp that came out on Purple Pyramid that's got a lot of the later stuff on it. Yeah. And it's you can get that for $22. So you can get X-rated. There's a lot of the later stuff that's all out of print. But we're going to look at Black Oak, Arkansas. So there's going to be some studying before we do that. But that's what's fun.
I'll say X-rated was a great album. Like it was almost like a comeback album for them.
Right. That was really like their first MCA album, I think, after they left.
And then after that, it's like, forget it.
Before we go on and do our scores, since I got a couple minutes, when I was a kid, Jim Dandy, do you remember when Jim Dandy had a band called Savage? Dandy and Savage. I think it was like 1981, 82 when I was in high school. Anytime the local theater would host something, my parents would get tickets and, me being into music. So we saw Jim Dandy and Savage play the Palace Theater in Marion, Ohio, which is not very big. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you, you watch Jim Dandy and David Lee Roth took everything.
Yeah, he was inspired by him.
Yes.
Yeah. Everything.
Yes.
He's mentioned him. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Dandy was right up there with Mark Farner with the girls at my high school as far as rock and roll dudes that they were really into.
But as a performer and a stage performer and a frontman, you have to admit, Jim Dandy was really, now we're on a different topic.
Different tangent.
See,
The
Dandy,
funny-
Not so much these days with Jim Dandy.
No. He better keep his shirt on these days.
no.
That's a funny thing about the Van Halen David Lee Roth thing, because in my family, I was the sibling that brought home all the music. The one instance my brother brought that first Van Halen album home, it's on his bed. I picked it up, flipped it around, and I'm thinking, the hell, did Jim Dandy start a new band? No,
Yeah.
David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
That was my first
He looks
thought.
just like him.
Yeah.
And he acts just like him.
Yep.
It's amazing. All right, everybody. I think we've shot the shit a lot. Really, I'm giving you my fair way I look at it. It's all in good. We all hear this stuff differently.
We would say
You know,
overall,
I appreciate Larry's 9. I appreciate DC's 7.5.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate everyone in the chat for chiming
you,
in.
folks.
We're gonna calculate this and see where it stands. And maybe a 5's a bit low for me, but I hear what I hear and I know what I like.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm not going to read through all these, but he's not in Grand Funk now. It's Mark Chatfield from the Gods is playing guitar.
Yeah, Bruce Kulick just got tired of the traveling, because all the Grand Funk guys are Midwest. He's in Arizona, and when they would do shows, he would always have the longest haul, and he just got tired of it. They didn't kick him out.
I like that first that first Gods album because they're a rock
yeah.
and roll machine.
Absolutely.
And they got to keep it coming. All right, so let's do here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I can't throw the graphic up, but I will calculate everyone's tabulations. Okay, this isn't bad. We've got, out of everybody, we've got a 7.4. So DC's
go.
pretty much right on the mark. I'm a little low. Larry's a little high, but I think, okay, gentlemen on the panel, do you think a 7.4? Can you?
Of course I could live with that. It's just whether Larry can, because this is his favorite Grand Funk album. But that's the fun here. That's the fun. We all hear things differently. I mean,
I know Larry wasn't on the Todd Rundgren shows, but what would you rate Shining On and We're an American
Shining
Band?
On, I never was a big fan of. I loved We're an American Band,
Mhm.
but when Shining On came out, once again with the 3D cover, I thought it was all stupid even back then.
Yeah, but think about this. I don't want to interrupt, but think about it. Capitol Records were always very supportive of Grand Funk. Look at all the money they pumped into their album covers. Even their 9th album, they pumped money into that 3D album cover and the gold album cover of We're an American Band.
Yep.
And didn't American Band come out on yellow vinyl too? I believe.
Yeah,
so. Look,
it did. Yep.
they were always pumping money into them.
Yep.
You had,
I like
they had
Shining On
strong
more
support.
now than I did when it came out.
Yeah, I think it's the best record.
It's good.
But, what would you give Shining On real quick off the cuff?
7 out of 10.
Okay. DC, what'd you give that one? I can't
I
remember.
gave it a 10.
Me too.
The first live album, American Band, and Shining On are all 10s in my grading.
So, Mick, I have 7.4 is a little high. What about the Boys tracks? Wait a minute. The Boys?
What the?
What are you talking about, Ernesto?
In Sync? We didn't talk about In Sync.
We didn't talk
tonight.
in sync. I mean, the bonus tracks. Oh, well, I've got this. The one
I
I've got.
rarely listen to them, but I like the one song. I can't get along with Society. It was
Yeah,
alright.
that's another Mark commentary tune.
Yeah.
I've got the Green Label Capitol CD, which supposedly is supposed to sound pretty good out of all of them, but it has no booklet, really. It's just a little insert. I didn't have the remaster. I couldn't find the remaster because a lot of that, I don't know. I just understood that this was supposed to sound really good, so I don't know. That's what I bought. All right.
There.
Ken, a 7 for me also. Dick Clark, 8.5.
It's not easy to dance
It's
to.
not easy to dance to. All right. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. 7.4. It's been a lively discussion.
Yes.
And that's all it is. I love these live shows where we can just have a discussion with everybody in the chat. Everybody can chime in. We have a great panel. Larry will be back next month, and we will look, and so will DC. And this panel will look at the live album. What year did the live album come out? Remind, because I don't know.
Like 76, Larry. Does that
sounds
sound right?
about-
Or 75
That sounds
or
about
76?
right. 76.
Yeah.
Yeah.
76.
Okay. So we will look at that live album. And like I said, I want to hear from you. We all want to hear from you. We will respond. Tell us what you think about this record, tracks that you like. You know, we do want to hear from you. So, Maureen's first boys crush was the Monkees. Well, it's still my boy crush.
Maureen said there weren't a lot of good-looking rock and roll guys in the early 70s. So my high school classmates, the girls must have been really on drugs.
Ernest, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ernest.
For the new subscriber. I want to say real quick, Larry, though, has a channel, Canadian Studmuffin. Check out his channel. The link will be down below. He has a lot of great content. He's got a hell of a lot more subscribers than I. He is a legend in the YouTube community.
84 million subscribers.
So check out his content. But, of course, DC, you can see DC here all the time. DC's always around.
Yeah.
Oh, Ken, what's the next band you're doing? Well, there's a Zebra show coming up this week. We'll be ranking the albums as Zebra.
Or the B.M. Bolt's back from his second dinner chiming in.
They're
planning on ranking
B.M.
the
Bolt
albums
will
of
be on
Zebra.
that show along with Stephen Schnee. Oh, here we go. What time is it? We got a minute. Does Glenn like Grand Funk Railroad, Larry?
Yeah, he saw them early on in the early 70s.
Oh,
Well,
When he went to see
them
Sly and the Family Stone, and they canceled, of course. And Grand Funk, he saw Grand Funk instead, and he loved it.
Wow.
So if I can get the graphics done, because I really love doing these ranking shows live and getting everybody's input. If I can get all the graphics done for tomorrow, because we also have the Contrarians live show at 7, and Zebra will be at 9 o'clock. If I can get everything ready, we'll do Zebra live because I love it. So everybody tune in then. If you like Zebra, hopefully you like it. Hopefully you can get turned on to it. I got 2 of the Hunt CDs. I don't have the third one yet. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got a Contrarian show at 8. So I want to thank everybody for coming on. I want to thank the panel. We will see you on the next one. Have a good week if I don't see you. Gentlemen, have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So long.
See ya.